want to, yeah, there we go. So I'm new to the awareness of the American Independent Business Alliance, but have really been impressed by the website and the mission. And I am, yeah, so I'm curious today to engage in dialogue. I'm going to give a presentation about kind of the history of Artisans Co-op, as well as what we're thinking about and how we're thinking about moving into the future. We are a startup. I would call us a startup at this point. Still, we're, yeah, in the second year of operation. And so, okay, I'm curious, how many of you are co-op members? I don't know, can you raise your hands? Most of you are on. How many of you are co-op members of some sort? Got some co-op members. What about people who have run like buy local first campaigns or been involved in them? People involved in like local production. Are any of you makers? Do you make things? Are any of you involved in the online or tech world? Yeah, me too. And then have any of you shopped on Etsy? Or you've heard of Etsy? Probably that one got a lot of people. Okay. Cool. Thanks for participating and sharing your little thumbs and hands. Helping me get a sense of things. Okay, so here I am. My name's Alana. I am just one member of a cooperative. And at this point, it's a pretty complicated cooperative. We're attempting to accomplish and run and start up a variety of things. So just a personal caveat that I don't know everything. I will definitely answer your questions if I can. And I also have a resource list for some further information of some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time that aren't really my expertise area, but that I've asked other members of the co-op to give me resources on. So I hope that for the most part, what I'm presenting is the like relatively basic truth, and also it's through my lens, right? And through my own experience. So, okay. So speaking of which, myself as well as other people in the co-op, and I spoke with one of the board members the other day, we have questions about how to exist in this economy. I'm not really going to go into these questions right now. I'll kind of bring this stuff back around at the end, but I think we're really in a moment in time where the economy has gotten so large and so oversaturated with constant consumption that small business, independent business, local business, high quality, like in-house production, things like that are getting more and more difficult to make economically viable. And so part of my inquiry for us today is yeah, I want to hear what other people think and how other people are orienting towards being economically viable, independent, and small businesses. So here, oh, I don't know how to toggle my screen. So I have another presentation here that someone else made that will give us some of the history. The first piece of history is in 2022, there was an Etsy strike. And there's been Etsy strikes potentially before. There's a long history with Etsy. well, I don't know about long, it depends on what time scale. There's a history with Etsy. There was a strike in 2022 with artisans being fed up with increasing fees, but also the oversaturation in the marketplace of drop shippers and people selling things that aren't handmade, and companies or bots or whatever doing really integrating into the marketplace and changing the nature of the marketplace. And there are different groups that did different things out of the Etsy strike. And one of those groups is Artisans Co-op, but there are also others like the Indie Sellers Guild. So I'll link to the Indie Sellers Guild in the resource list. So the people who would form Artisans Co-op started working roughly in 2023. And this is a bit of their intent and history as founders of the organization. This should be viewing full screen. Oh, well. So the basic concept was that they wanted to create a marketplace that was what Etsy was originally intended, was for makers, except would stay what artisans intended by being in a co-op ownership model. Democratic management, control for artisans. And the people who founded Artisans Co-op designed it with a kind of a multi-stakeholder format. So there would be producer artisans, there would be people who are supporters who buy in, and people who don't buy in but do purchase on the website. And then there would also be staff. You can read these things if you like. All of these things happened, right? There was a lot of planning, recruitment, building. There were initial people who bought in. And I was getting these emails from Artisans Co-op, or what would become Artisans Co-op, you know, buy in at $1,000. And I couldn't quite hack it with my business. And I didn't buy in until the official launch in October of 2023, where I ended up buying in with like a little bit of money, but mostly labor, right? So $1,000 or 40 hours of labor in the first year, and that's your one-time buy-in for the co-op. So that's how I came in. And we had a pretty successful launch by any of our measures that we had. We had a lot of traffic for the holiday season. We were even, as a startup, in the black for the month of December. And all done with member labor, right? We don't have any employees yet. So I have more information about the ownership model that we can get into if you like, but here's a breakdown of those member owners. I don't know if you can see my cursor that's moving on the screen. Okay. Member owners, have lower platform fees. There's profit sharing. They submit their points of time inputted, and they also earn points for sales and referrals. And then member owners who are supporters, who that buy-in level is different, they can open a shop, but they don't get points for their sales, and their platform fees would be slightly higher. At this point, our platform is only open to members. So that's a limiting size factor, and also a part of our reality for development, because the co-op wants to be responsive and slow and take a lot of data to figure out how we want to grow and what supports the people who are involved the best. So any of our members and our staff, future staff, can submit proposals. We have a whole system for that, for things that need to be changed or that people want. Anything else here? I don't know how much details we need to go in. I might move through this relatively quickly, but this information is available on our blog if anyone is more interested in nerding out about the structure of the co-op. Okay. let's call that good there, and then go to here. I'm gonna pause there for questions about the history and the past, and then I'll move into talking about the future.
There's a question that's kind of in the middle. What's your total membership right now?
I think we're at about 300. I have this later in the slides. 300 members, and that's a mix of supporters and artisan members. Check the chat. Okay, I see that question in the chat as well. Thank you for that. So let me see, do I have the slide with members? No, let's go back. Okay. So now a lot of work has been put into building a website. I think it looks phenomenal. We have members who are really good at graphics. Somebody made me these backgrounds for these slides. I have there's so many resources that have been member generated for the co-op. It's pretty amazing. And the website is really a gem in that. There are certain functionalities, like I think we have more people who are on beautiful development of images and content and blogs than we do on people who are working on website functionality. So that's the first place for funding an employee. And we're also looking to have more member engagement, find more members who have some of that website expertise. We do have a tech team. It's just there's a lot of demands on building a marketplace. If anyone has web experience, marketplaces are complex, and we're doing something that is unusual. We are currently using Shopify, and they have a multi-vendor market integration that not really anybody uses besides us. Maybe there's a couple other groups that use the multi-vendor integration, but they don't have a lot of incentive to really develop it. So we're helping it become more developed, and that's a process. We also have so those 300-ish members, we have a pretty engaged membership. There's a lot of people putting in a lot of time. It's a quite a wide spectrum. You have people who have made it their primary passion, and you have people who are inputting 20 minutes a week, or a couple hours a month. There's things like that. And part of that, a lot of the information and a lot of the engagement is coordinated through Discord, which I'm not sure how many people know about Discord. It's a messaging and coordinating platform, right? So you can have all these different threads. So different teams working on different things, marketing, team money, team service, they have their own channels. And then there's places where people can, communicate. So there's a lot of support within the Discord for artisans who have any questions. Our service team is amazing. People in the Discord are really amazing. They respond really quickly. Including to things, that aren't business related, that aren't particularly co-op related, things where this is a place that people go for community and solidarity as makers. Yeah, so there's a question in the chat about the founding team and funding, and how we got from the concept to where we are now. There was a really good blog post that I'm going to share in the resource sheet afterwards that has more of that history. I wasn't there, so I can speak to it, but it's like me reading it to you. So I'm going to wait on that. And as well, in that resource sheet that I will share in the chat at the end, that also has links to the different organizations and cooperative, like start.coop and different things that have helped us form and helped us figure out the principles and supported our process and gave seed money and things like that. We're largely just funded by memberships at this point with a little bit of seed money from an organization. I think it was Start Co-op that early on. And then that actually does let me do it. Here is our website. I have us in the sort by makers or artisans section. So this is something that I really wish Etsy had, right? I wish we could go on Etsy and say, like, I want to look at the shop. I want to know who's making my goods. And yeah, so that's something I think that sets us apart from Etsy. We have a pop-up offering you something. So you can shop by artisan, by collection. There's on the main page, I have rural internet, so you'll see my slow loading here. But I think that the teams have done a really wonderful job setting up, you know, how you can search and how you can filter. And then you have products that are being, you know, trending. Yeah, so Artisans Co-op, it's just a simple address, artisans.coop. If you search Artisans Co-op on Google, it's up there at the top as well. Now, how do I get back to my presentation? There we go. Okay. So then I'm going to talk a little bit about us as in comparison to Etsy, right? I think a lot of the founding team, right, the people who've been there from the beginning were aware of all of the wheels turning and the co-op formation and the commitment to growing quality rather than quantity and really figuring out how to be different than Etsy, because we're never going to be Etsy. And then now in this kind of second phase of our beta run, we are interested in increasing the artisan membership, and we have a task as far as education goes, because that there is an upfront cost or there is a labor cost to become a member, and that's unusual for the environment, right? At least compared to Etsy. And then we're not Etsy. Well, okay, well, so we do have this benefit over Etsy in that our fees are lower, and our fees are very transparent. The three bars with the chickens on them, the chicken is the Artisans Co-op logo. It represent the fees for artisans members who are founders, so people who paid in initially, who were like, yes, I'm in, I got $1,000 to give to this project. And then artisan co-op members who come in the later phases have a slightly higher fee, transaction fee that is. And then if we're eventually having non-members on the marketplace, those fees will also be a little higher. Still, that's lower than eBay, Etsy, and Amazon Handmade, and it's all transparent, which is my favorite. Etsy is still the place that most people go. It's still the name for what do you want to find? You want to find something unique or interesting or a gift or handmade, or you want to find craft supplies, etc. They've got lots of money, and there's reasons for that. It's my animation not coming through. There we go. And there's history, like starting out as a new business. I think online is even harder potentially than a storefront. I don't know. I think it's probably hard to start out as a storefront too, but getting known. And then just to give some information about scale with Etsy. So in the month of January, a total of 240, let's just say almost 244,000 new shops opened on Etsy. In April, that went down a little bit, But basically the average since October, when I've been paying attention to these statistics, has been over 200,000 new shops opened on Etsy per month. Some of those are bots, right? But that also represents a lot of product being offered. At some point this year, Etsy instituted a $15 shop fee. They didn't used to have any shop fees. So that's at least 3 million per month if we're up in that $200,000 or 200,000 new shops range. And that doesn't count the other fees. So April, the new shops are down a little bit, but still a pretty massive scale, right? And here we have Artisans Co-op. There we go. 323 members and 198 of which are artisan shops. And not all of those shops have been filled out. So yeah, then here we are. I'm curious, yeah, what other people in this meeting here, like, do you have similar experience? Is your interest here just a curiosity about Artisans Co-op? Are you also hoping to learn and explore things for yourself and your own endeavors, the own organizations that you're involved in? Yeah, any thoughts or questions so far? We have a raised hand. Katie.
Yeah, hey, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your process for getting the market up and running. We're interested in doing a marketplace for wholesale products, and it would be more for business to business collaboration, trying to get business owners to source from one another. And I definitely recognize that the setup process takes a lot of attention and thought. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more about kind of just the early stages and just like the thought processes or surveys that you guys sent out. And maybe if you could talk a little bit about what that looked like.
Thanks. That's a really sweet idea. I'm curious, is it makers who, like, maker businesses, or yeah, just tell me a little
I
bit
think
more.
we're going to limit it to products rather and not as much services. So yeah, just wholesale businesses making things at a quantity that can be purchased by other businesses. But also supplies, so
Yeah.
if folks have things that, can be bought in large quantities, we'll be asking folks to, look for purchasing them from the local businesses first before, checking out Amazon or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Super awesome. I think that the big online equivalent to that right now is called Fair. If you're interested in looking at that wholesale situation, it's kind of like the Etsy of wholesale.
Right.
So I wish I could learn and give you a more fully embodied response, right? I wasn't involved in the co-op until October of 2023, when all that founding work had already started. But what I experienced as a member coming in was that the founding members had set up some really amazing systems where you could find whatever information you needed as an interested artisan, as somebody who wanted to sell on the marketplace. And there was a lot of education specifically about the co-op component. I think that the people who founded Artisans Co-op are very like morals driven, have like a strong ethic, have strong values and strong standards. And they surveyed potential members, like they created a definition for handmade, and here's how we tell and discern what do we want to have on the marketplace. That was a open process of this massive data collection about what people thought about that. And I think also it's been pretty complicated, I would guess, for wholesale, like for businesses who are already busy making things, and then they're looking at receiving less money for their products, but selling more products, right? That you would want it to be a little simpler than we did. But there are people that I could connect you with who are involved in that process, and also some blog articles that will detail that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Like
Any
Diane is,
other?
yeah, Diane's working with a small, whoops, sorry, working with a small artisan cooperative on the Olympic Peninsula, so not too far from you. Hoping they'll take a closer look at eventually becoming a member of Artisans Cooperative. So Diane, I don't know if you have any a question specifically, but I'm guessing your Artists Cooperative is a brick and mortar business at this point?
It's not a brick and mortar.
Okay.
They do events and they support one another to do these events, so they don't have to be present at each one. They really right now, I think, are mostly grateful for the mutual support that they get from one another, and that they're not operating alone. They've done some online sales in combination with another consultant that they work with. But I think that this could be a really great opportunity for them to engage in online sales without having, appreciating the work that you all have done to get this off the ground and running. And I think it would be a great example of U6 cooperation among cooperatives.
Yeah, I that's one of my hopes and dreams for this next phase of Artisans Co-op is to get a bunch of cooperatives as members, because there's already that awareness of what the benefits of a co-op are. There's already that desire for community and participation.
Yeah, and it
So-
might be, a part answer to your last question there about how do you stand out rather than getting lost.
Yeah. Yes.
Anyway, thank you so much for sharing information. I have your website up and I'm looking at that as well right now too. And I appreciate the fact that you have shared so much about your structure.
Thanks. Yeah, would love to connect with you there. There's another question in the chat about I got it, Jen.
Okay, go right ahead.
So referral incentives to send other members or contacts. So there are referral incentives in terms of points. So the points are like the equivalent of the membership buy-in, and there's also other functions for them. But you can get points by referring people, right? So that counts as some of your time investment into the co-op. And I can connect you, Cody, with how that all works. Just take a note there. Katie, is that, oh, that's your hand was
So I have another question actually. I was just wondering, do you guys work with the artists one-on-one to help, take photos and display their products in a way that makes them super marketable? Or do you guys have any sort of program to kind of, just help make sure people are putting their best foot forward?
Yeah, that has been a priority as well. There's a workshop that happened, a product photography workshop that's available for members to refer back to, or some members participated live in. And there's definitely a lot of community support and different people who are involved in Artisans Co-op who want to help other people improve their shops. I definitely think that the standard and the bar that has happened on Etsy is really like beautiful and manicured and like high tilt, and that some of the makers in our contingent at this point are people who are like, well, I want to make this stuff. I didn't like really get into this for marketing or for perfect photos. So that's something that yeah, we're trying to strike a balance between like improving and encouraging those things to be a little more I guess customer enticing, right?
Mhm.
And also it would be nice if, you know, we're our sellers and artisans are able to not spend as much time as they would have to spend to stand out on the Etsy marketplace. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Yeah, Jason.
Hi, thanks so much for being here. Just had a question about the governance of Artisans Co-op. It's not every day you see an organization basically come up with its own kind of totally new made governance structure, and was just curious. I don't know if you were involved in that part at all and could kind of speak to that. I sometimes work with new organizations here in Pittsburgh and trying to kind of work through that. How do we actually create a democratic governance structure without investing like thousands and thousands of hours and not even knowing if it's going to work, sort of thing? And it seems like you guys have certainly navigated this.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I would say like probably thousands and thousands of hours were invested. And there's also like help to get us to where we got, right? Start.coop, which I'll it's a lean co-op course. Put that in the chat. Some of the founders took that course and then ran with some of those ideas. Also, the ownership model canvas was used to I think like help give a framework, and then it was largely put that in there too. Largely, and those links that I just put in the chat will also, I'll share a link to a document that has all of that stuff in it. We were also supported by the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives. And let's see. I guess I can basically just put a lot of the info in the chat. I guess so. Stephen, are you wondering about like what do you want to know about the governance? Are you wondering for yeah, what's your role?
I guess my thought was mostly just
that's
about how you went about navigating something totally new like that. No need to just go through and read all your materials, and like you said before, that can certainly go and look at them on the blog. But just was sort of interested in your experience and what you've seen from others at Artisans Co-op, of like kind of what your experience of building a new democratically run organization was like.
So I think the parts that I haven't already said, and sorry I got your name wrong. I was like, who's on the screen? Thanks, Jason. So it started with a core group of people who were dedicated, right? And who formed an interim board, put in a bunch of time to research and to survey and to vision what it would be. And I think that something that was really helpful in that process was the Discord server as a place where different pieces of the conversation could all be stored, and you can, you know, tag the people who you have questions about, and if you can go to whichever section you're interested in. That the Discord server kind of blew my mind. I have never been in an organization where like, oh, this is how community organizing works now that we have technology, right? It's not just like always people sitting in a room. If you are all in the same place, I think sitting in a room is great. But yeah, the real like complexity and nuance was really sussed out in a lot of virtual spaces in an impressive way and coordinated with Discord. Yeah. And then I think that also really contributed to the feeling of belonging and solidarity, right? Like you're seeing other artisans, and there is not just business going on, not just working on the nuts and bolts of the cooperative, but getting to know and enjoy and affirm the things that other people who are involved are doing, so that those relationships have felt really, really valuable and really useful. There's also been, because it's formed of relationships, right? And people, I don't know if anyone has noticed, people are pretty messy. People are pretty, you know, similar, but also very different in how they interpret words, or, you know, how they feel about things. And so there's been conflict resolution processes that have been involved too. And yeah, and having a standard of, like, these are the values that we want to come to conversation and dialogue with. These are the values that we want to interact with each other through. Having those things in a document that everyone who joins has to like read and sign that document, then is a good reference point for, okay, if there is something later on that happens in relationship or in communication, we at least all opted into these standards, and hopefully that can help us weather some turbulence. That's what I would say. Other questions or thoughts? Yeah, I wish I was, I don't wish this, but I see that like the expertise around co-ops would be really great for this, and I am not quite that person. I'm much more of a like systems and economy thinker. Yeah.
Alana, have you were selling on Etsy beforehand?
Yeah, I still sell on Etsy. I have recently downsized my shop to try to optimize the fee structure. So I no longer sell, we make reusable cloth pads for menstruation and some forms of incontinence. And we also make carrying cases for stand to pee devices and carrying cases for some other things. And so selling like individual items that cost $10 or $5, the amount of fees and profit that Etsy makes off that is larger than if I sell a whole like set of pads. So it's more economical for us to sell just sets of pads on Etsy. So I've taken down all the singles, or I'm working on that. And you know, Etsy is still a place where people find me organically. And Cozy Folk, I bought Cozy Folk from someone else in 2018, but that business has been on Etsy since 2013 and really developed its brand on Etsy. And at the time in 2018, when I took over the business and opened my own Etsy shop with it, there were hundreds of small cloth pad makers on Etsy. And at this point, when I search for cloth pads on Etsy, I'm still a little surprised that we come up like a couple of our listings in the first page, but we are one of the few that has stuck around as a smaller maker. And so I want to keep that presence there, and yeah, the organic people who find us that way. And then also there are people who love Etsy. So, you know, and they will do the shopping there. They will prefer to do the shopping there because they're used to it. So yeah. Yeah, Stephen.
I have a lot of questions that just come up because I'm just very curious about your business and how you got here. And I'm wondering, like, in terms of the bigger vision, like, do you have like a clear idea of like what you're aiming for? Like, do you want to be like a big national sort of brand name like Etsy, but the sort of worker cooperative, or excuse me, the cooperative version of that? Or do you want to remain niche or regional, or like what are your ambitions as a company?
Yeah, great question. So my understanding of that has evolved. I ran for the board of Artisans Co-op, and that happened in the spring, and I didn't get elected. There was a lot of people who ran. We had wonderful selection of people, but it was telling to me that I didn't get elected, because so I put forward, there are things like, I think we really need a wish list. I was like, we need a place for people to favorite. For the functionality of our website, we need this, right? And while I think that's true, I think it's also telling that I didn't end up selected by the group as part of that leadership core. And the people that are in that leadership core, I'm really glad of how things panned out, because what they're facing and doing right now is holding the vision and synthesizing all of the data and all of the feedback that's coming from the membership, and from there deciding where to go, right? There are concerns that more people in the membership apparently have than like putting making sure we have a favorites list, right? There's really kind of like fundamental roots level, how do we operate and what do we want to be, that's a part of the future. And in myself, I was feeling this, oh no, like we really haven't gotten like a lot of traffic lately. We had a good burst, at the beginning, and things are dwindling. Do we advertise to like makers? Do we advertise to people who are going to buy stuff on the marketplace? Are we even going to keep the same online structure of the marketplace? Like, are we going to like do a totally new website? We don't know. And there's a part of I think myself and probably lots of other people who are like, oh, does that mean this is a failure? Because we haven't like kept the momentum, because we haven't scaled to like, 10,000 sessions on the site per month, or whatever those benchmarks might be, right? And actually, it's just the anxiety, right, of like consumption, right? Like, oh, we need to be selling like all the time, or we need to be big, and maybe we don't. I mean, I do think we need to improve, but I'm glad that the board is holding the vision of like, how do we grow intentionally and slowly, and like not try to feed into the rat race, right? So yeah, what the future is pretty uncertain. But what does feel certain is that we're committed to the vision, and the leaders are holding the awareness that, well, we're all leaders in different ways, but like the board and lots of people who are putting a lot of time are holding the awareness that a startup, takes a while, right? And if we want to stick around, unlike, and we want to continue to grow our success incrementally, we have to put some faith and some elbow grease into it and figure out how to do that differently. Yeah. I don't know if that answers it. I had a
Great, thank you. Thanks for that answer.
Thanks, Stephen. Others who
What'd you say, Jen?
had a chance? I'm just saying we've got time for another question or two.
And, not just questions, but I'm interested in people's thoughts as well about, oh, why did that change and go away, come back? you know, how do all you and your organizations and businesses think about this concept of selling or marketing quality rather than quantity? You know, marketing like a connection to your value in a different way than the mainstream.
I know for us, it's definitely about improving the quality of our communities by supporting artists or local businesses and keeping dollars within the community. So we definitely try and emphasize that message and help people understand the difference between, you know, supporting kind of more directly versus on these larger websites where the profits are kind of cannibalized and don't go don't stay within the community to make improvements.
I know a number of us were creating online marketplaces as a response to COVID and trying to get some of our retailers, brick and mortar, that were doing curbside and maybe had their own online store to do it collectively. And I think most of us realized what a huge endeavor that was. And while there was lots of interest when people couldn't go into your store, now that that issue has diminished, how do we keep the retailers and the artisans connected to updating their profiles and all that? So it's more of knowing that people want to buy local, but they just get so darn used to buying online that whatever consumption they do choose to make, we'd love for them to choose local.
Jen, were those online shops all like brought together in some way?
Just at the local level. So in my region, we had a marketplace. I know Jen Rubenstein from Kentucky had one. So we're all working with different vendors. Spokane, Washington has a different, actually they use the same vendor that we did. So we all were trying to come up with solutions individually, but we haven't come together. And that's why I was really excited about the Artisans Cooperative, because it is something that we can drive our individual artisans in our community to join, rather than us as small nonprofits trying to serve that role at this point when the technology is so new. And that would just become our whole business model, our whole, you know, nonprofit. It's just running that marketplace. And I don't think many of us want to do that, although some of us are doing that.
Yeah, well, we would love to offer that, because that is the focus, right, of Artisans Co-op. And so, yeah, so happy to have people refer people our way. Great. Which I think there's, speaking of which, there's our email down there at the bottom, and there's my email. And yeah, becoming a member is the best way to, one of the best ways to engage, where, yeah, open to all sorts of options.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you talking to us, because it is such a new business and you're new to the business. So we're looking forward to watching the evolution of the Artisans Cooperative, and hopefully more tech cooperatives are going to be out there as you know, cooperatives kind of grow in this new model. So thank you so much. And everybody else, I know that people shared a lot of free questions, and we're going to get the resource list from Alana. But if there are other questions that pop up after you leave today, definitely send them my way and I'll share them with Alana and the cooperative. Please check out our next Local Leaders Roundtable. We're actually going to be talking about, we've talked about rewards-based crowdfunding and how you raise money from the crowd. We're actually going to be talking more about equity and how do you raise or offer equity rather than rewards-based crowdfunding. So check out that link, come if you can. And thank you all for being here. Thank you, Alana, for being here, and everybody have a great rest of their day.
Yeah, I'm gonna just if people want to hang on for a second, and we are at my time, 10:54, sorry. But I will share the Google document resource list in the chat, and then of course I presume Jen can also follow up.
Definitely. And we'll share the video and the resources in a follow-up email, probably by tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, and any other, you know, also welcome people to share anecdotes from their experiences and yeah, questions. And I know to follow up with Katie and the person Cody from Eugene made somehow. I don't have your contact informations, but I have you circled
You
to
can
follow
just,
up
yeah,
for some reason.
feel free to send it to me and I
Okay.
can forward it to them.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm actually, Katie, what was I following up with you about? Was it just the resource list?
If you could follow up with some of the information about just kind of early stages, getting the marketplace up and running. I'd be curious to hear about the processes. Thank you.
Wholesale, that's right. Cool. Alright.
And I'm gonna look up the dumpster, what was it, Diane? Dumpster Values Collective. I've definitely gotta look that up.
Yeah,
Intriguing name.
resell clothing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Nice.
And Cody, is that Eugene, Oregon?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Very close. Yeah. Sweet. Well,
To
lovely speaking
Northwestern.
with you all. Yeah, check out Artisans Co-op.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.